Novel Bootcamp, everybody. This is part of WordCamp. Did I say WormCamp? This is part of WordCamp, which is our novel writing focused server. We have lots of free classes and workshops and events that are related to writing books. Where's my, here it is. There we go. Okay, we're back on track. So today we're going into more outlining stuff. We will be touching on things like structure and how chapter pacing works and things like this. I think I had moved myself over to allow something else to be on screen yesterday. Okay, here we are. So we'll be looking at chapter pacing, book structure, and we will have time to look at your guys' ideas or outlines for books and give some suggestions or guidance when it comes to the foundation of your story. Right now we're still at the stage where we're kind of just trying to figure out what it is that we're writing and how to start shaping that into the proper size and form of a novel. There we go. Scenes on OBS were all mixed up. Okay, so we're on a stage channel, so you will have to raise your hand if you want to speak aloud. You then have to click that accept invite button. We're on WordCamp. We are a writing community that's linked to ScriptCamp, which is our biggest server. So if you're into writing for TV or movies, check that one out. We've got plenty of other servers too, which you can see here, which are all focused on learning different skills to reach your life goals, like Film Camp for filmmaking, Design Camp for graphic design, Code Camp for coding. I've been a screenwriter professional screenwriter since 2017, and I've written 5 books. Currently working on my 6th book. Can't claim to have gotten anything published yet. I'm just on the kind of read request stage of the querying process, but we hope that number 6 will be the one to do it. In any case, I teach the screenwriting classes on ScriptCamp, and that was the foundation of what I started with. I always was a screenwriter when I was just beginning, so that is going to have some similarities. So if you think that you are interested in just learning more about storytelling in general, then ScriptCamp is a great place to go. Check out some of our other classes like these coming up. We have Mystery and Crime Writers Group, which is a new series that we just started. The next one's going to be May 15th. Those are on Wednesdays. Class on Theme and Argument, May 17th. That's going to be in our Friday slot from 6 to 8. Spec Script Spotlight is sort of like a book club where you read scripts and try to break them down, figure out how they work and why. May 19th. And that script for that one is The Mask of Red Death from the Blacklist. We have another novel outline next week, same time slot on setting and world building, and then on May 31st, a brand new class on what I call the Victory Lap, but I think I'm going to amend to just call it like fun third act tricks or something like that. Just some interesting examinations of things to do at the end of the third act when you are moving through finale and epilogue. Here's I guess, a full listing of everything coming up. So on Sundays from 10 to noon, we also have our TV class going currently, but when that one concludes on the 14th, then that will swap into our feature writing slots. So we always have 2 boot camps going, on Friday and Sunday. That's for features and TV normally, so Friday 6 to 8, Sunday 10 to noon. And when one of those courses finishes, then they switch slots, so they just alternate back and forth. And we have this current novel boot camp running 12 to 2 on Saturdays for quite a while. This is our longest course. We're in the outlining portion now, but once the actual course gets started, it lasts for 90 days. That one starts on the 8th of June. Here's just a big list of stuff on other servers as well, including accessibility and UI design on June 27th on CodeCamp, coding Discord bots on CodeCamp. We've got multiple workshops and advanced labs on both Script and WordCamp as well. Okay, so plenty of stuff going on every week on ScriptCamp, WordCamp, and all the others. You can sign up for just one class if you go to scriptcamp.net/classes, or you can become a supporting member and get access to every event on every server. And if you do subscribe yearly, you will save 40% on that. You can find that at scriptcamp.net and just scroll down to find unlimited membership here. Includes all the classes plus ScriptCamp video library with recordings of all the previous events and classes. And that will include access to every event on all of them, not just ScriptCamp, but also Word, Film, Code, Tune, Creator, Design, and Lingo, everything. So definitely join us, sign up if you are thinking of taking more than just the free public events and workshops. All right, so we did this discussion a bit last time, so I probably won't torture everyone by making them reintroduce themselves and their goals as a writer and things like this today. But in any case, so the stage that we are on, we've done a few of these kind of intro level novel outlining classes so far. Why did my thing get so blurry? Why are you so blurry? Focus. Focus. Thank you. Okay, and we're back, I think. Almost. All right, we'll give it a minute. But in any case, we did our first kind of introductory courses here where we talked about things like genre. We have target word count, which is based on genre because different genres and age categories kind of favor different levels of word count, especially for debut authors where these word count restrictions are a little bit more strict. On the shorter end, debut is almost always going to be in a little bit better shape in the querying stage. If you're querying debuts at over 120 or 150,000 words or things like this, then you might be setting yourself up for disaster in that a lot of agents will start auto-rejecting you if it seems like you've written something that is far too long and doesn't fit in the format that you're writing in. So let's remember that your average adult novel is going to be like 70 to 100,000 words. On the 100 end, towards 100 is more common. But then with fast-paced thrillers and a lot of romance and things like this, you can start out on the lower end, maybe between 50 and 80,000 words. In terms of young adult and middle grade, the word counts are going down. So they're going to be lower than adult. And you're going to kind of, in terms of young adult, max out around 100. Like, that's going to kind of be the top limit rather than the average length. More often, young adult books are going to fall between that 70 to 95 kind of range, with middle grade falling even lower than that. And if you're writing chapter or picture books, then we're getting below 50,000. And that's going to be more like, chapter books are probably more like 20 to 40. And picture books, I don't think we even typically concern ourselves too much with word count, but they can be in the like 300 to 500 word range if it's just going to be like poetry on between, that links a story together, something like, Goodnight Moon, something like Where the Wild Things Are has a little bit more text, and then, you can build up more from there. But in any case, publishers are not way too concerned about with word count when it comes to children's books, and also a lot of the time you just put the whole text of the book into your query letter in the first place. So obviously, if it can fit within a query letter format, then it doesn't, the word count is not the primary concern. But in any case, writing adult and middle grade and YA, you should pay a lot of attention to this idea of word count. Becky has a comment. Go ahead, Becky.
Yeah, just to back up what you're saying with regards to middle grade and YA, especially for debut, publishers are looking much, much shorter. So obviously I've got this first look deal, so I'm kind of writing to what they're requesting. YA as a debut, really don't want to go above 70k if it's like a sci-fi or fantasy, 60k if it's contemporary, and for middle grade, it's even shorter. It used to be able to go up to 60k, but now they're saying 50k maximum, and that's including if it's a fantasy or a sci-fi. And if you're looking at contemporary, then even 40k. So they're getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Just to kind of put that in there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that.
That's for debut. Obviously, once you're published, it can change. So in a series, the books sometimes get longer in a series. That's for debut.
Exactly, and also this changes over time, and this changes based on the market that you're in. I mean, the U.S. market is a little different than the U.K. market. This sort of English-speaking world of literature is quite large. It goes beyond just the U.S. and the U.K. Because there's a lot of English-speaking countries out there. So you will have to just sort of do a little research as to your local market's requirements. And also just keep in mind that in a few years, this might not be the same anymore. If you look back, even some of my favorite YA books from when I was growing up were more like over 100,000 words. They were pretty big, even the debuts. But nowadays, we have to kind of be more judicious and careful about our word counts and really try to rein it in, aim for these shorter installments, and just keep in mind this changing sense of attention span and how many other options that people have of things they could be doing other than reading your book.
And also that whole other countries is a big part of why especially middle grade are getting shorter, because more and more middle grade are getting translated into other languages and publishers pay per 1,000 words. So that's another key reason for why they're getting shorter.
Right, good point. You don't get to charge more for a longer book usually. Books are kind of like a pretty standardized price, obviously depending on hardback versus softback and things like that. But a book that's twice as long, they don't make twice as much money from. Okay, so thank you, Becky. So this is the roadmap for writing the entire novel through and through. I mean, or for the novel outline course, I guess I would say. So we started with story concept and logline. So that's super important to just nail down at the beginning. What are you writing? What is it about? What genre is it? Who's the main character? Like just kind of these essential things. When we begin to expand on the sketchbook, which is the kind of unsorted, not really formatted document that contains all of our ideas, and research and influences and inspiration for that project. The more we fill that out, the more you're going to get a sense of who your characters are, which is, I think, going to be a point that we'll want to move from concept more into character today. And of course, story world. So, what is the location, the setting that your story takes place in? The historical period, or maybe it's a fantasy or a sci-fi world or something like this, the secondary world that you've created entirely on your own. In the coming weeks, we will focus more on story beats, chapters, and scenes. We will touch briefly on structure today, but we won't go way too into it. We are still in the early phases of the outline bootcamp, and so what we're going to focus on now is moving from concept and logline into character and story world. So I think that today we'll have an opportunity to get updated feedback on your loglines if you have done some work on those from last week, or if you have a new one that you wanted to get some eyes on for your book. So make sure that if you have that, you have it ready to copy and paste in the chat, or you have it in a Google Doc that you can link us, and you've changed the sharing settings so that anyone with a link can view. And if you are brand new, just joining us for the first time, maybe you're even watching on our different platforms like YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, Discord, something like this, then we would love if you came and joined us. So you can come join us by even going, it doesn't cost anything to join these free classes. Just go to our website, which is scriptcamp.net, and you can get that link to join our Discord server. You see that Discord button in the top right there. This one, whoop, right there. So if you click that, you can come join us, and then you can participate live in these classes. Where are we? So let's, before we go into character, let's recap and have anyone who's just come for the first time have an opportunity to speak up and tell us what kind of book are you trying to write. Do you have questions on things like genre, or what should my word count kind of be, or any of just these kind of fundamental things before we move ahead into figuring out, well, who are the characters that are going to carry this story forward. So let's start by just opening the floor to anyone that wants to tell us about their book project or ask any questions about it. Raised hand, go ahead. Your mic is on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself on Discord by clicking the microphone icon in the bottom left.
Yeah, there we go. Sorry, you missed all the fascinating things I just said.
Say again.
I was just mentioning that I was participating a lot in your screenplay exercises about a year ago, and then realized that my stories are too complicated for screenplays and getting into novels. But the thing that you were extremely helpful with was helping me understand structure and kind of come up with the craft of how to construct a screenplay. So I'm really looking forward to seeing some of those, some of your insights on the craft of novel writing as well. I feel like generating stories and characters is something I'm comfortable doing, but putting the framework around it for the screenplay from you was really great. I'm hoping to see some of the same kind of stuff in this for the novel setting.
Great, cool. Yeah, glad to have you. And even though I'm all blurry for some reason again, can we ask what was the book that you were working on, or the story that you were working on as a movie? Are you trying to re-envision it as a book now?
I'm thinking that's probably my first project, and that was a sort of sci-fi, sort of solar punk novel about the transition period between climate change and turning our world into sort of a green ecosystem set in Las Vegas when a group of scientists and soldiers had decided they were going to retake the city on an eco-friendly basis. You had helped me quite a bit with that, actually.
Basis. So like take like a coup, but in the name of environment.
Yeah, essentially steal the water rights for all of Nevada from Nestle Corporation.
Nice.
It was sort of a heist.
Cool. Yeah, eco-terrorism's cool.
Yeah, we want to get away from the terrorism idea, yes, but the idea being, edge of the lawful, trying to get into a place where you can assert action. But I am thinking about reimagining that as a novel, but I'm also considering a couple others as well to see what the format suggests. So hearing you talk about the format and the way things really sort of unfold within the novel framework is going to be really useful to me.
Great. And so, since what it sounds like you're writing would be adult sci-fi, is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
for sure.
So sci-fi is usually going to have a little bit more room for like a longer word count, but as we were talking about with Becky, you'll still want to like limit it and not let it just get bigger and bigger and bigger. You're right that a book will give you a lot more room though to sort of take a lot of different perspectives and build a bigger world. So you'd probably be able to aim for like I would shoot for 100,000 word book if that's what you were considering this as a novel. Just if you wanted to start thinking in terms of like what would the structure kind of look like for this. Yeah, around 100,000 or like even a little bit more. I don't think a few thousand on either side would turn off a publisher or an agent or publisher. But I'll leave you with that for now. Just because if you're still in the brainstorming phase of what do I even want to pick, we don't have to get too into the weeds on the specifics yet. But we'll be glad to answer any of your questions about novel specific stuff as we move through the structured talk.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a big Neil Stephenson fan, so being brief is going to be hard.
Oh yeah, Neil Stevenson. Yeah, Diamond Age. Did he write
Yeah.
Snow Crash as well?
He did Snow Crash. My favorite by him was Anathema, but he also did 70s. He's done quite a bit, but he's typically, I've been looking this up in prep for this conversation, and he comes in around 150 typically, sometimes up to 180. Right. I don't think I have that many words in me just yet, but someday.
Right. You can always do sequels. That's the cool thing with books too, is that when you're writing scripts for movies or TV, sequels are not on the table at all. Like they're just absolutely not up to us. It's like a completely it's like so out of our hands. But you totally own everything that relates to your novel. So you own the world of it. You own all the characters. You can do as many sequels or side stories or prequels or anything else within the same sort of world that you want.
That's an encouraging thought. Yeah, I hadn't considered that.
So it can always start small and then build it out bigger, which I think some series like The Witcher starts off as like short stories, and then they start to get more, build a stronger canon as they move forward, and then can expand into a more epic kind of like narrative overall. So there's always options there too.
Thank you.
We can talk. I just wanted to give an opportunity for those who've come for the first time to go first. I just wanted to post it so I didn't lose it.
Sure, no problem. I didn't see any other hands raised for the moment, so why don't you start us off with this one?
Okay. Yeah, it's still work in progress, and I know this is too long and doesn't really have the goal or the stakes, but basically, when 11, and also I know normally you wouldn't include the character's name, but in a kid's book, for our log lines, I've been told that's what we do, so that's why I include her, because obviously kids don't really have a job. So when 11-year-old Maddie moves to London and discovers her great-uncle's home is a hub for hunters of supernatural creatures, she joins forces with the mischievous Puka to battle an evil necromancer, unraveling family secrets and her own destiny as a guardian of the hidden world.
All right, thanks for this. So, let's take a look. So she moves to London, discovers her great-uncle's home is a hub for hunters of supernatural creatures. She joins forces with a mischievous Puka to battle an evil necromancer, unraveling family secrets and her own destiny as a guardian of the hidden world. Okay. So this is sort of like your, not quite like a Portal fantasy, but we might call the sort of like hidden society type of story where we go through kind of like a portal, like a societal portal to uncovering a secret organization or something like this that our character needs to join up with. I would think Artemis Fowl is a little bit similar in that our main character starts off in the real world, but then discovers there's more to it, and then I want to be a part of that kind of world that he learns about.
That's a brilliant comp, actually. Yeah,
That's a
it's
good
that
one.
kind of feel with the technology that I want as well.
Right, like super science kind of stuff. It seems like.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you mentioned that you're right that kids don't have jobs, and that usually is going to make it like an easy shorthand for us to refer to our adult characters by. An aging lumberjack or something like that just gives you like a clear picture of the character in terms of like their socioeconomic status and what their skill set and what they do all day. When it comes to younger characters, my recommendation would usually be to think of like the kind of clique they fit into, or like the I don't want to say stereotype, but like the archetype that they fit in. You might say an 11-year-old brainiac,
Geek.
or something like that, right? 11-year-old class
Geek.
clown, something like this that kids would know what you meant right away just by not that middle grade kids are usually buying the books for themselves, but in any case, just like a sort of simplified version of how that kid might fit into their role at school or at home. You might say like 12-year-old teacher's pet, 12-year-old mama's boy, something like that. That just kind of like gives you a sense of, like, you're right, the kids don't have jobs, but they can sometimes fall into these identifiable archetypes that we can lean on in terms of a logline. So what is a hub for hunters of supernatural creatures? Does that mean that they just hang out there, or does that mean that they need to use the building for something?
It's like their base.
Did you
They're
say
like
it's their
base
base?
of operations. Yeah, their base of operations. Basically, it's the group that do it was set up by her great uncle. So it's like their kind of base of operations.
He's in charge of it. Is he still there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then in that case, I think you'll probably like the importance is probably more on the uncle himself. She moves to London and discovers that her great uncle is the head of a monster hunting society. I think, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, because right now it sort of seems like she goes to the place on her own and he's not there, and she discovers that it is a place where monster hunters just congregate. But in reality, is she going to live with him, or is she living with someone else in London?
She's staying with him. Yeah.
She is staying with him. Okay, so she moves into the home of the head of a monster hunting society.
Right.
I think that would just sort of make it feel like that would put that relationship up front a little bit more, and make it feel a little more personal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because that's also going to be her guardian now, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so it feels like the hook of the story isn't what's this crazy place I found, it's who's this crazy guy that I'm stuck with now. But I think this is
Don't want to say supernaturals rather than monster.
Say that again?
I think I prefer the word supernatural rather than monster, because it's not always monsters.
Oh, okay.
It might be like an artifact, yeah.
But when you say hunters, does that mean that they are killing them?
Yes. In theory they are, though what he's doing is he's got like a sanctuary to protect those that are not dangerous or bad. So the society is trying to kill them or collect them to do research on sometimes. But he's the one that's got the puka, for example. He rescued the puka because this puka wasn't dangerous or bad, so.
But you're saying the rest of his own group will kill them, but he doesn't want to?
That's the idea I'm going with at this moment. Yeah.
Isn't he the leader, though?
He's one of the founders.
One of the founders.
4 founders.
But who's in charge?
In theory, all 4 of them. You know, like how...
It's like a council.
Yeah, they go... Yeah.
I see. Okay. So in that case, then, yeah, if mostly they are killing them, you typically, I guess you would describe them as a society of, hunters of supernatural creatures. And he, in fact, would then, if he's not in charge, he's not really setting the course for them. He's kind of like defying the other ones. Is that right?
Yes. I mean, there are some that they will get rid of because they are dangerous. Like he has the view that not all of them are dangerous, that some are misunderstood, some are like waiting for their spirits to be released if it's a case of ghosts. So it's kind of he's a lot more compassionate than the others.
Right. He's the Professor X of the group.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, I think the concept is working well. I don't think a kid would know. Most kids know what a puka is, so you might just like in some cases, I think introducing a creature or concept like or like a secondary world or something like that can work. In a logline where you sort of make that the point of the book, or it's like you want to find out what this is, read more. But in some cases, it might be more helpful to just simply say something like a shapeshifter, which we would kind of be able to understand that it's a spirit that can look like a kid, right?
Yeah. And a horse, and a
horse.
dog, and a cat.
Okay. So would you say it's like kind of like a kid that can turn into animals, or would you say it's kind of like it almost seems like a wild spirit that a human is only one
The
of
wild
its many
spirit,
forms?
because he can't. Yeah, he's a wild spirit because he can't. He doesn't look properly like a boy. He does transform into a boy. It's not convincing enough that when they go out in public, he has to be a dog or a horse or a cat because he can do that more convincingly.
I might even in that case call him something like a mischievous shape-shifting boy then, right? Because that's how your character would see him, even if he's not a human by default.
Yeah.
Also kind of just paints a picture. If we don't know what a puka is, then we're like, oh, is that like a little furry monster, or is that like what exactly is that? Whereas shape-shifting boy tells us, well, that's how he presents himself, and it sort of tells us also what he can, what his powers are, what he can do. And then her destiny as guardian of unraveling family secrets, and her destiny as a guardian of the hidden world. Okay, yeah. So this is sort of like the Gravity Falls kind of thing, where it's like your relative is a part of the secret world, and it's ultimately you can view it as, or the character views it as, their own destiny to take their place within that secret society as well. Is that how it goes?
Yeah, because it's. I mean, I know that Megan earlier was saying that as a debut, you'd normally say it's standalone with series potential, but in this case, it is actually being, being sent as it's going to be a series. I don't know if series is the right word because it'll be the kids can drop in on any book. It's going to be like a Goosebumps type, say these characters, but different adventures every time.
Yeah, I don't know if in publishing they refer to it this way, but I would usually consider that to be an anthological series, or it's close to that at least. I wish I knew what the specific word was. But in any case, yeah, I used to read these all the time as a kid, and that.
Yeah, you can. Other than the first one, which obviously sets it all up, you can read them out of order, and yeah.
And even if you don't read the first one, usually they recap kind of the basics on the back of the book. I'm thinking like, was it called Magic? Not Magic Treehouse. I think it was called Knights of the Kitchen Table. Magic Treehouse was a different series, but this is kids that would go to different. They would time travel to different eras and have adventures. And I don't know. Was I the only one that read these? I can't remember. But the point was, we join the kids every time, and we don't have to, like, the first one is sort of the origin story of like the first trip they take with the time travel treehouse or whatever it is. But the other ones, it's not like it's we don't have to like do a lot of work to re-explain the premise every time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, this is looking pretty good. So what was it that you would think that this is missing? You said it was a little too long, and also you think that what did you want to have a stronger sense of? Was it your character's motivation?
Well, I mean, her motivation is simply that she's a very inquisitive 11-year-old that wants to figure out what's going on. So, that is motivation enough for the story. I suppose it's the stakes. Like,
I see what
so far, yeah, there's nothing really that's directly affecting her. Like, she decides to join with the Puka. I haven't figured out the story yet. I don't know why she battles the evil necromancer. I don't know why she chooses to get involved with everything. I just, like, at the moment, that's the villain of this piece. Obviously, it's a kid's book, so I've got to be careful about what he does because it can't be too gruesome. Because obviously we don't want necromancer is.
Mm-hmm.
So I might change that. He might be something else. He's probably going to be some sort of recurring villain. But yeah, at the moment, I don't think I've got in the logline, or if I have a reason as to. It's fine for a character to start getting interesting and wanting to explore, but by Act 2, there's got to be some kind of, oh God, now I'm stuck doing this, because otherwise blah will happen.
Right. You have to
I
figure
don't
out
think I have that yet.
what's the evil plan that's in play. If this was an adult book, I would say, well, he's killing members of the society one by one. Like, that would just be the like the first thing that jumps to my mind. That might, if that's a little too adult for you, though, I would consider then, for instance, what is at the heart. If this is the first story, and the first one sets the tone for the rest of them, and usually you're going to pick a conflict that's kind of emblematic or like at the heart of the thematic debate of the entire thing. So I would ask, if this is a series about science shining the light into dark corners, who is it that benefits from maintaining those dark corners or being part of them? Right? Is he part of the sort of secret society that feels that these investigations threaten his power, or are they trying to? If their whole thing is we want to get rid of all the ghosts in London, then he's like, I need those ghosts in London, right, for my scheme. Like, I need to bind them to my will and make them my servants and slaves. So I don't want you busting any of my ghosts anymore. Or it could be that maybe they're bringing too much attention towards his antics, or that he's even responsible for a lot of the ghosts, demons, or anything. Not demons. I think you said you weren't doing those, but the zombies and stuff like that we've been seeing all around London. So I would maybe, if you're going in the direction of you need your Voldemort, I guess is what you're talking about, right? You need your bad guy that hangs out in the distance and is going to be a recurring problem for the heroes. Well, then he needs something that like a conflict or like a schism between them, or a grudge of some kind with the person in charge of or the council in charge of the society. Maybe he's a former member of it.
I was thinking that, and then he got kicked out for what he was doing.
Sure.
Although you did spark an idea.
Did I?
Oh yeah, because you said necromancer. Like, obviously we know it as being about the dead, but maybe it's binding the spirits. And then I thought, I like the idea that she's got an older sister that comes with us. And I was thinking, what if it turns out that older sister is actually a ghost, and her ability is that she sees and talks to ghosts, and then it's her sister's spirit that gets bound.
That's
so
pretty
she
cool.
needs to do it to free her sister.
That's pretty personal. You know what else you could kind of do? If the whole problem with this society is that they think, most of them don't give the supernatural creatures a chance and think they're all just totally dangerous, right? Maybe if the schism or whatever, the conflict that created your villain in the first place is what gave them that idea, or is what pushed them to that place. For instance, maybe at first they were like, we have to save every creature. We're a preservation society, right? This was years ago. And they were capturing all the ghosts and keeping them all in jars on the walls and stuff. And our one necromancer, secretly evil member of the society starts getting curious and getting greedy. He's like, guys, why are we just keeping all these ghosts? We could be using them. And then they're like, no, don't go in the ghost basement or whatever. He goes in the ghost basement, captures all the ghosts and binds them as his servants or whatever, becomes uber powerful. And now they're like, we have to stop that guy, and we're never going to make those mistakes again. Every ghost we get from now on, we destroy it right away.
And I like it being linked to some kind of thing in history. So maybe him binding the ghosts caused the plague or the Great Fire of London, or some kind of British catastrophe that we can look back to. Because all of this, I want it to be somewhat in real British law and history, and kind of so it feels real.
Sure.
Yeah, if you know what I mean.
There's plenty of tragedies to choose from, I think. So you'll no shortage there.
Perfect.
But,
I'm reposting my.
Go ahead.
I'm just reposting it for my own benefit, with the changes. Megan's is above mine. So, thank you, Connor, and you've just sparked something.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
So let's take a look at another one. I think Megan shared hers, and if I don't see anyone else posted there so far, but right now we're just kind of sharing the concepts for your book. If you have questions or brainstorming that you want to do just to make sure that you have the very essentials worked out, or maybe you're trying to figure out who the main character would be, what the stakes are, what the goal would be, any other questions like this, then now's the time. I would always rather do one-on-one work with people on their stuff they're actually working on, rather than just do a bunch of boring slides. Who wants to listen to the teacher? Blah, 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 blah. So let's look at Megan's logline. This, I don't see a title on it.
This is the one that has the working title of Orange Blues.
Orange Blues. Okay, why don't you read this for us?
When an intrepid young historic preservationist unknowingly releases an imprisoned supernatural spirit, she must master her innate talent for color magic with the help of the most insufferable man she knows, in order to re-imprison the seemingly malevolent entity.
All right. Nice job. So, I think you've repeated yourself a little bit. She unknowingly releases an imprisoned supernatural spirit, and to recapture it, must master her innate talent for color magic with the help of the most insufferable man she knows. So I think you could actually lose most of this last sentence.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
And then just add a couple words in the middle to finish that thought. So, let's see. Intrepid young historic preservation. Is that capitalized for a reason?
I don't know. It just happened to be when I typed it up.
Okay. I thought maybe that was like an official group or some real society or something. Okay, she unknowingly releases in it. So, you mean kind of accidentally, right?
It's not completely accidentally, because she knows she's opening the door. She just doesn't know what's behind it.
Oh, I see. Okay. But it's sort of, if you say she unknowingly releases it, that makes it sound sort of like she doesn't realize that she has released it. So is
right.
it maybe like unwittingly a better word?
Maybe, yeah.
It's a little a bit of a cliche in log lines, but I think it communicates the idea better. So the action that she took was deliberate, but the consequences were what she didn't see coming.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay. And to recapture it, must master her innate talent for color magic. What is color magic?
It's the chromomancy thing we were talking about before.
I remember it coming up in the book, but I just... Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's an innate talent for magic that works on colors. I was hoping to make that as clear as possible, but it's kind of hard to... But so maybe it's just her innate magical talent. We don't need to know it's color based. I just thought color was kind of an interesting twist. So
it is. I just don't know what it is or what it means. So maybe can you just describe what kinds of things you can do with color magic?
You can do any number of things with color magic. It's just about frequency. Each color has a different frequency, and how you combine them will create magical effects if you're a witch.
Okay, so it sounds like you're just like magic in general, right? Like it sounds like the specifics of your magic system aren't all that important. It's not like we're facing a black and white spirit that needs to be combated with the forces of color or something like that, is it? Or am I missing some connection there?
The idea is that color magic is intuitive, and arithmancy is logical, and they actually have to work together because he uses arithmancy.
Oh, okay.
But it's just too much. It's just too much information to try and put in the log line, I thought.
Right. I think so. So, and in fact, if you just must master, you might even like want to phrase it like if the color magic thing is not something that can really be fully. You can't even exactly hint at what it does here. You might just need to... it might be best if you just leave it out of the logline. And to recapture it, must learn to magically bind it with the help of the most insufferable man she knows. Or must master magic with the help of the most insufferable... Something like that. You just may not need to actually put those extra specific details.
Yeah.
Or she must learn... and must learn the binding ritual. Must study the binding ritual. Must master a binding ritual. Something like that. Okay, I think you get the idea that the color magic thing kind of just raises a question that you can't really, you don't really have the space to answer for the moment, and it doesn't really seem to correspond directly to what the threat is or something like that. So I think you can pull back a little bit on that specificity. And the other changes I've already made on here. I think this looks pretty good. Um, any questions on this, or what were you working on here? Anything that you wanted to focus on?
At the moment, I just need to write.
Just need to write it. Okay, understood. Well, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Why does that make me want an orange soda for some reason, really badly? I haven't had an orange soda in years. Okay, I'm seeing another logline from Charlie. Let's talk about your concepts.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Okay.
Did you already share the logline in the chat?
What's that?
Did you share? Oh, I see it. Forgotten Sons.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Would you like me to read it?
Go for it.
Okay. When a crime lord arrives on an exoplanet initiating a hostile takeover, a cunning accountant caught in the crossfire must outmaneuver the boss's rival before the violence eradicates their earnings and the outfit.
Crime sci-fi sounds cool. When a crime lord arrives, okay, am I dumb? What's an exoplanet?
It's a play on maybe like an alien planet. Like I want to establish that they're not on Earth, and exoplanets are like further afield, right? Like they're not inhabited planets. It's almost like the Wild West aspects of sci-fi. When I'm doing the world building, yeah, they're like, it's a prospecting planet, basically. Like they're mining and stuff on this planet. So it's kind of like rife for criminal organizations to come in and you know, make their money.
Maybe hard sci-fi nerds might know what an exoplanet is, but I think you could just as easily describe that in the terms that you just told us. A distant mining planet or something like that, right? It's not really uninhabitable if it's used as a mining planet, though. So it's kind of a distant mining colony, right?
It is, yeah, by the time this story takes place. It's like terraformed and they're starting to explore it and like extract things from it. So maybe alien planet works fine.
Okay. Alien planet might sort of suggest it has some kind of alien government, though. You're saying it's more like a wilderness kind of thing?
There is another species there that they come in conflict with. So there is like a sentient alien species there, but they're able to overcome them, and it plays into the story later. Essentially, like what they're extracting is almost think of it like oil, right? It's like you come to Earth and you're extracting oil, but the dinosaurs are still around.
You've seen Avatar, right?
No, what's that? Yeah, I've seen it.
So the unobtainium of the of this world is the resource that they're trying to get, as you're saying, is the point of the mining colony.
Yes, correct.
Okay. A crime lord arrives on an exoplanet, initiating a hostile takeover of what?
Of the organization. So it's like the best way I can attempt to explain this is almost like think of like The Godfather, but in space, right? Like they're running a criminal organization. This organization is exploiting the fact that they're so far from like Earth and civilization and a system of governance that they're able to come in and take over this operation and make money off of it. And then a bigger fish comes in to take over once they've established that this has earning potential.
Okay, so he's taking over the mining company.
Yes.
Got it. Or the colony that's run by the mining company.
Yes.
Okay. So I think that you can clarify that a little bit in the logline, because he's initiating a hostile takeover of the entire planet, of the government, of the... I didn't even know there was a mining company in the original logline, so I think you might just need to kind of spell out in clearer terms. So a crime lord lands on a distant mining planet to take over the company that runs the place, is that right?
The illegal organization that's taken over the legitimate portions of
Got it. Okay. A cunning accountant caught in the crossfire, between the
two rival bosses,
the space mafia and the mining company.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So I wasn't understanding who the crossfire was between, too, because I didn't know about the mining colony either.
Okay.
So must outmaneuver the boss's rival. The boss of what?
their boss, who they're working for as the accountant.
Who's the accountant working for?
So that's the thing.
Not sure yet?
No, I know. I just don't know how to phrase this and position it where the third act is like also a surprise. So essentially the way that this I would like for it to read is like there's an accountant working for a crime organization, and the person they're working for gets word that this rival gang leader is coming in to take over, like a hostile takeover. So they plan defenses, right, on how they're going to overcome this person and preserve their empire. But as the story goes on, what you come to find out is the accountant is really the other boss. She's like hiding in plain sight. And so when the rival boss comes in, they're actually fighting against her front man and thinking that they've overcome the other crime boss and have won in the end. And then she shows her hand. Like, she is the other boss.
Okay, so she's the, like, an undercover CEO kind of situation where the...
Right, exactly.
Okay, so the, this would be a mining company boss posing as a humble accountant kind of thing, right?
Yeah, she's like the Don, but nobody knows she is. They think she's the Don's girlfriend. Like, so they don't know that she's actually the leader of the organization. She uses this other person like a mask or a front.
I see.
So that no one knows, that it's really her running the whole thing.
So in order to really convey what your story is, you probably have to spoil it in the logline.
Okay.
Sounds like to me. Just because otherwise, to preserve the surprise would require you to not reveal what happens in most of the story. If we learn that, because I'm assuming we learn that probably around the midpoint. Is that what you were thinking?
No. I want to do it at the very beginning of Act 3 when her plan is implemented. Like, when in hindsight, when you look back, you'll see those elements. But narratively, the way that I want to play the story from her perspective, she's the unreliable narrator. She's lying about who she is and allowing other people to project what they want to see onto her until she's ready to make her move. And then she steps up, and that's when we see her in action as the boss, like winning the war.
But what point of view is your story in? Or whose point of view is it told from?
It's going to be first person.
From whose point of view?
From the accountant's point of view, the actual boss who's pretending not to be the boss.
But you're
So
gonna
she's an unreliable narrator.
Oh wait, so is she like giving a testimony or something like that, and that's the frame for? Is there like a frame?
The framing is just like so the way that I wanted to structure this. You're gonna regret asking me this question.
Oh, God. What have you done?
So Act 1 is 25% of the story, Act 2 is 50%, and Act 3 is... The way that I want to tell this story is when I begin, it's from her unreliable narration. And so we're like in media res, but I want Act 1 to be half of Act 2. Like, I want you right into the rising action. And then when we go into Act 2, I want to do Act 1 exposition while I'm moving Act 2 forward. So the structure overall stays the same, but I want to do narrative exposition through flashbacks while we're moving forward. So there'll be a couple of triggers that do exposition while we're moving forward into place, like them going to war and like putting this plan together on what they're going to do to overcome this outside threat.
Wow. Okay, this sounds quite complicated.
If that makes sense. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Not too much right now, but just because it sounds like a lot going on, and you have it sounds like a complex story and a complex structure, which
fair.
can be a lot to chew. If you think you can handle it, then obviously go for it. I would just forewarn you, when writing in first person, it's difficult to hide secrets from the audience because we're supposed to know what your character's thinking, unless you have some kind of frame for it. And a frame would be something like this is, so think like Lolita or something like this, where the character's like giving this testimony in a courtroom where they have a reason to lie. Because if somebody's just in their own head, they have no reason to lie to an imaginary audience, right? Like, they have no reason to withhold information from the reader unless you give them a good reason to do that. So you might want to consider how you can frame the story in such a way that can allow your first-person narrator to lie this much, and then have they're concealing a massive secret from the audience almost until the end. And then in that case, your log line, I guess, would have to reflect a lot. I was kind of thinking it would be a midpoint twist, but if you're saying it's like a very end twist, then I guess you do just have to sort of straight up line the log line to reflect the experience of the book. This is just about this meek little accountant who's just trying to like get out of the, just trying to survive and just trying to, how did you phrase it? Must outmaneuver the boss's rival before, which boss's rival? Her own boss's rival, before the violence eradicates their earnings and their outfit and their lives, right?
Yes, that would be the outfit. The criminal or the gang itself, would be axed.
Right, but that kind of just sounds like you're dissolving the organization. Like, that doesn't sound like you're killing the people necessarily. Obviously, in some contexts it can. But it seems a little weird to me how you started with the lower stakes thing. You usually start, like, I guess I would say it eradicates their earnings and their outfit. It will eradicate their earnings, their outfit, and their lives, I think, is what you're ultimately trying to... That's what you're building to.
Okay.
But then again, violence kind of implicitly threatens your life, so I'm not sure exactly how important that is. In any case, it's a little weird, though, to be like, oh no, bad guys showed up and they've got guns. They might destroy our earnings. Oh, and kill us. Also kill us.
Yes, and that.
I feel like
that's a given. It's like, we're a gang, of course they're gonna try to kill us. But
what is Hermione?
What about the money?
Hermione at one point is like, if we get caught, we might get... What is it? We might get we might get killed, or worse, expelled. Yeah, exactly. It feels like that.
So what I'm imagining in the structure currently is the beginning of the third act. That's when I'll reveal her hand. I would like to be able to wait until that point, and it's almost like a Usual Suspects kind of thing, but that is like an interrogatory framing, and so I need to consider like how I would do something like that. I thought in act 1 and 2 I would essentially keep her almost like a passive protagonist. She's moving and doing things, but she's being dishonest about it, so she's passive in showing her true motivations to everyone else, and just like, man, how are we going to survive this? How are we going to get through this? And then in the third act, when she's enacting the plan that she puts in place in act 1 and 2, that's when she reveals, like, she's unmasked, and then you see the boss come into her own and act out her plan.
Okay. So in terms of your logline, I would first of all just clarify the setup of these different factions and stuff like that. So we need to know there's an illegal mining colony on this planet. The other thing is I would probably start with your main character rather than starting with the crime lord. So we would start with I guess so. The structure of the outline of the logline here is not wrong or anything. I'm just trying to think of how I would reframe this around your main character a little more. So a cunning accountant on a criminal mining planet must... Well, what must she do if she's not actually in a leadership position there? I guess it is tricky because your main character is in charge, but is pretending that they're not in charge.
Correct. So she's almost like a...
Go ahead.
She's almost like a wartime consigliere, right? Like, the first scene that I imagine is almost like, okay, the boss, right, the front man, gets word that this rival boss is coming in. It's like, hey, this is going to be a hostile takeover. They didn't announce themselves. Like, we're going to deduce what this is really about. And then it's like, oh, he goes to his girlfriend's house, right? Like his confidant, to talk to her about this and like come up with a plan. Or use her as a sympathetic ear to kind of formulate like maybe what he should do. And then in hindsight, it's like, no, he reported to the boss that they have a problem. And then the two of them are talking about what to do. So that's how I see the scene. She's active, but you're not looking at her in her true nature. She seems more subtle than she is at first viewing, is how I'd like to play the character, or how I'd like the audience to, or the reader to perceive the character.
But the mining boss is approaching her for guidance and advice, at least, or it would seem that way?
Yeah, exactly. Like a consigliere. Like, think about the mob structure, right? You have like the Don, the boss, and then there's an underboss, who is the second in command, and then the consigliere is almost like legal counsel or advisor. You would talk to this person about problems and like work through strategy with them. So she's not totally inactive. You just don't see her as the point guard, if that makes sense.
Yeah, in that case, maybe then you can kind of frame it like, set it up in the logline a little more like the mining boss is the main character. So it's like when a rival crime lord shows up to threaten his illegal mining operation on a distant planet, a criminal mining boss turns to his accountant to like think of a way to save their operation, something like that, right?
Okay.
And then that would sort of sound like the hook of the story is we're going to be that your crime boss is like, I need to solve this using legal means. I want to keep this above board to avoid violence. I guess is how it would sort of seem, right? And then it would make sense why he had to approach his accountant in order, or his maybe you'd want to use a slightly different word than accountant in that case. But regardless, if you sort of put him because he's the one actually in charge, or that is ostensibly in charge of things on the planet. So frame it from sort of like his perspective, and then you are kind of tricking the audience, but it also does sound like that conveys the idea of the story. Does that sound like it works?
Yes, he's not the boss. He's definitely beneath her. But again, essentially the way that this character, you'll start to see the way she thinks, right? Later on, she knows she's out in the Wild West, right? And you're not going to muscle your way through. So she uses essentially this muscle or protector and just elevates him to a front man. He's an empty suit. And so she lets everyone else believe that he's the boss, and even allows people within her group to see her as the boss's girlfriend, as active camouflage, right? But the whole time when they're alone, he knows she's the boss.
Right.
And that is the dynamic of their relationship behind closed doors.
I see. Okay. So yeah, that's my suggestion, is to take it from that perspective of, the boss of a criminal mining planet turns to or must enlist the help of his, or maybe something like, I guess just the only thing is that it would have to be clear why a crime boss can't solve the problem on his own, right? Or would have to, or why it would seem that he needs to turn to the help of one of his underlings in this case. And maybe the solution is that he's going to try to ruthlessly, financially outmaneuver and defeat his opponent here, rather than just trying to kill him. Because if he was just trying to kill the enemy, then he wouldn't need to ask his accountant's opinion. So maybe to avoid violence, or you're endeavoring to avoid a war or something like that, right? A hot-headed crime boss of a mining company turns to the assistance of his clever accountant, right, or something along those lines, and they have to work together to avoid their company being destroyed. That's how I would kind of think of it. Obviously, that wasn't perfect. We'll have to find the exact phrasing, but I think that would cover all your bases and also allow you to kind of trick, like have this sort of cover story in terms of what the audience knows as well as what the characters know. That sort of preserves both of those. So I think it does kind of work, though it is it's a tricky dance you're attempting.
Yeah,
but you wouldn't have it any other way, would you?
Nope.
That's what we like to see. And a little ambition.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we had one more, and then we will go we'll touch on structure, and we will go into the rest of our slideshow, which is going to cover some topics like cast of characters. How do we figure out protagonist, antagonist, and central relationship, and what each of these characters are up to? We were with Becky discussing a little bit this idea, and I'll get to just give me 1 second. I will get to the last premise that was shared, but I'll just leave you with this as something to think about as we go into our next one. Protagonist, antagonist, and central relationship is kind of the heart of the story. So novels can cover a lot of ground and have a lot of characters. A lot of the time, it's easiest to explain and present the story in terms of a central character, one singular protagonist that becomes the A story that takes precedence over all the others. And as you unveil different subplots, of course, then usually you're going to be wrapping those subplots in the opposite order that they were introduced. So if we start with your A story, so focus on that main kind of conflict, then we come to meet the conflict of the B story, or the whatever's going on there. Perhaps if the A story is going to be the protagonist's central external battle with the antagonist, the B story might have to do with the protagonist's central relationship, for instance. And then the C